Welcome to the podcast, Kill Complacency. Here we inspire intentional living by motivating others to handle hard better. And here's your host, Marty Hofmann.
Hey, today's podcast is with Kris Krohn. I had the pleasure of listening to him at a real estate event in Las Vegas this year, put on by Ryan Pinea, and kind of started following him at that point. I didn't know of anybody in the single family space that has scaled it like he has. Single family is hard to scale, and I think to date he's at 6,500 homes, kind of a big deal. But the why behind it was really, and that's what we're all about on this is, finding your why to motivate you to kill complacency and live intentionally. But his why is really family. And that was really cool for me to hear not only about how he's helped his parents out financially, but also how he's raising his kids with some financial IQ. So really great stuff. Really enjoyed this podcast with him. And I hope you guys get some nuggets out of it as well. It's all about killing complacency, living intentionally, and making the most of the opportunities we have. And Kris certainly emulates this, and hope you guys enjoy this. So today I've got Kris Krohn on our podcast, and Kris is a guy I really like because he's in a single family space, and it's hard to find those guys sometimes that are doing large volumes of stuff. Kris, our podcast is, kill complacency. Thesis is to inspire others to live intentionally by learning to handle hard better. I kind of want to tear into or hear about your backstory. I want to hear what got you into real estate. What were you like at 18 years old?
Yeah. Well, at 18, kind of pre-college, I wanted to be a doctor. And I had wanted that for a number of years because I always felt like I was going to have my own family. But I also thought that I'd be taking care of my parents. Even though I come from a large family, 8 other brothers and sisters, my parents didn't manage money well. And so there was a lot of financial fights growing up. There was always a lot of talk of debt and refinance and paying stuff off. And it just seemed like a stressful thing. And so I just assumed, all right, like if I'm a doctor, I shouldn't be having those conversations. When I get into college, though, to become a doctor, you have to take a lot of chemistry. And man, I'm going to tell you that is probably the roughest subject for me. Took organic chemistry, got a C. And my advisor's like, yo, you got a decade of this. This is not going to fly. So I'm like, dude, I'm stubborn. I'll take it again. He's like, you don't get it. This is a weeder class. Like 10% of the class get A's. Everyone else fails. I'm like, no, trust me. Like I can effort this one. So I hire a tutor. I hit it again. And then I get a C minus. And that's when I was like, I think he's right. And This does not come naturally to me. And so it was honestly a little bit of a sad, depressing start to adulthood because I wanted to know how to make enough money for 2 families. And I couldn't find a degree in college that was going to do that. And that really forced me to look outside the walls of university. And I've been brainwashed my whole life by my parents. Like my dad's a German immigrant who's like, school, get good grades, work for someone else, golden handcuffs, parachute is going to be amazing. And then I kind of got this weird job in college that gave me a very different perspective. I did this financial telemarketing gig for 4 years. And that first year, I was talking to a specific avatar of people. These were college educated people from 30 years earlier. They were now in their 50s. Okay. So they all went to college. They were 401kers. They were savers. They are IRAers. They were house pair offerers. And now they're in their 50s with like a decade before retirement. And I'm talking to them and I'm like, these people are scared. They are not excited about their future. And I'm like, what went wrong? Dude, they all followed the plan. And how come they can't seem to have more than like, $200,000 in 401ks and IRAs, like, and their house is partial paid off. I'm like, something doesn't smell right. And that is when I became acquainted with the reality of the human condition, of what it's like to actually be in this country and how hard it is to get ahead. And that just solidified all the more that I need a different path. and it's going to be non-traditional. And for me, it was intuitive. It was like, oh, you need to go find people that have lots of money, and then you should ask them how they did it. And that's how I found my first mentor that had made over $10 million in real estate.
Kris, I think I heard you say that you needed a job that paid for two families. So you were going to take care of your parents and your family you were going to start. Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah. I mean, really a career, right? I needed something that would help me have enough financial success to take care of both my parents and the family I wanted.
Yeah. And then where do you fall in line on the 8 kids? I've got 9 siblings, so there's 10 in my family. I hear you loud and clear on the financials and growing up. I remember working and giving my mom and dad the money, paying bills. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But where did you fall in line?
Yep. So I'm number 4, middle child.
Okay, so am I. 4 from the top.
Yeah. And as a middle child, I think there's a lot of pressure in birth order psychology to be the glue that kind of pulls it all together, right? The firstborn traditionally feels all the pressure to be the example and to be the all-star and to show everyone the way. The second child is always in birth order rebellious because they can't ever measure up to their older sibling that are just a few years ahead of them and always look smarter, brighter, more intelligent because they are, right? They're ahead in time.
Yeah.
And then the middle child starts feeling a little lost. And then the last child is usually a little hellion. We got little devil horns. Just says
and spoiled, right?
And just I've been spoiled. Like you weren't allowed to watch rated R movies till you're 18. I'm 8 and I can do it now. Like they get everything way too early, right? So no, I was definitely have that middle child syndrome.
But you felt a responsibility at 20 years old to take care of mom and dad.
I felt a responsibility at 8 years old. At 8 years old. My parents were having this epic fight about money. They didn't know I was eavesdropping. And I listened to my mom end the fight by calling my dad a Nazi. That was always a sure, fire way to kill the argument as it capitulated. And it was in that moment that I was like, I wasn't afraid. I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure out this money thing. And 14 years ago, my parents ended their working career in bankruptcy. And I feel very, very grateful to God that I was in a position to call him up and say, hey, move down. I've got you and I'll take care of you. And I've done a lot of cool things with money, but I think in my heart, the coolest thing I've ever done is just take care of my parents.
Well, and that's cool because sounds like working toward that your whole life to some extent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what motivated you to look out. That was your why for looking outside the box.
Yep.
Sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
So you got your first mentor. And he was in real estate, and you were off to the races?
Yeah. My first mentor really, we had an interesting relationship because I argued a lot with my mentor because I wanted to know. I would watch him doing a land deal and then a flip, and then he'd wholesale this project, and then he'd do a development, and then he'd be flipping $1 million home. And I was like, man, I don't want to learn all of those strategies. I'm just overwhelmed trying to figure out the difference between the terminology of mortgage versus rent and landlord. Like make it simple for me. What's the best strategy? And my mentor said, well, they're kind of all the best. I was like, no, I don't accept that answer. I said, I am here and I need to walk to Josh's house. There's a fastest way. Like there's a best way. And he said, well, you can't really argue there's a best way in real estate unless you make it subjective. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, one strategy makes a lot of money, but it's high risk. Are you high risk? You're risk tolerant. And so I said, okay, I got it. I need to add my own, subjective nature to this formula. And I said, but I'm going to write a formula for this. By the way, I failed at chemistry, but I thought I wanted to get an MBA. So I took stats, and out of 200 people in that weeder class for business, they graded the entire curve on me, which is nothing more than to say, I love elementary 5th grade math, right? Stats is really a lot of proportions, ratios, basic stuff. And I love that. So I said, okay, I'm going to write a basic algorithm here. I'm going to take the 30 major strategies. I'm going to compare them all against each other. And I want to find the strategy that makes the most money, but with the least time, the least effort, and the least risk. I said, that's what I want. And from there, I really figured out what that strategy was. It was, if I focus on single family homes and I buy them below the median in the best markets on a short-term 3, 5, 7-year hold, that's where I'm going to actually create the highest ROI. And I decided that 6,500 single family homes ago.
Kris, what year was it when you bought your first house?
2003.
2003.
Yep. 21 years ago.
And tell me about your first deal. Was that scary? I mean, I'm sure it was.
I was terrified. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding the house, my mentor basically said, hey, have a 2-year work history. Let's go traditional, right? Have a 2-year work history, get a couple more credit cards, keep them paid off, show the bank 3 lines of credit that are used responsibly. And then try to figure out how to put $5,000 in the bank. He said, we're going to buy you a tiny house. Like, just put $5,000 in the bank for a 3% down payment. I said, okay. And 14 months later, I had achieved all of those things. And it came time for my first deal. And I found this tiny little bungalow 5 blocks from campus. And
Kris, what market? Where's campus?
This is in Provo, Utah, next to Brigham Young University.
Okay.
So I found this tiny little bungalow that was for sale for $110,000, but it was worth $150,000. And my mentor said, this is perfect. You're gonna buy this home. You're gonna rent out the basement. The basement should cover all the mortgage or most of the mortgage. So you really are gonna live for free. And so my wife and I moved forward kind of on the faith of our mentor. And I remember when I was sitting at the closing table all alone, the realtor wasn't there. I just had an escrow agent that I had never met before. And I've got this big fat packet. I'm about to take the $5,000 in my bank and write a check for $3,300 for my 3% down payment. And I was reading everything verbatim because I was convinced that someone was out to get me. And 4 hours later, I'm on page 18 of 100 and whatever pages. And I said, Kris, you're either first of all, let's just say you don't agree. First of all, you don't even understand what you're reading, but let's even say you don't agree. What are you going to do? Tell them that you want them to change it? You know, they're not going to do that. Like, take it or leave it. Are you going to take the deal or leave it? And so I just started sitting down. I started signing after my 4th hour. And I just kind of closed my eyes. I'm like, geez, God, please, I pray and hope that this is like the thing. And then my wife and I moved into this house and we lived for free. And then a year later, used the equity to buy a second one. And our net worth was over $150,000, getting paid $600 a month excess on that one, living for free. And my wife came to me after the 3rd month. She says, let's buy more. And that's when I was like, awesome. All right, man, like we've got our game plan. By the time I'm done with college, I want to have 20 homes. I want to have $10,000 a month residual so I don't have to get a job. And that was the game plan. It was, I want to end college with no job. And that's what happened. We had 25 homes. I was pulling in to over $12,000 a month and I didn't have to get a job.
You pivoted though right away. You didn't use your own money, right? You started raising money from friends and family.
Well, not exactly, kind of, right? Like my first house, I was a house hacked with a 3% down payment.
Yeah.
My house bought my second house and my second house bought my third.
Okay.
And then I found the 4th deal I wanted to do, but I couldn't pull the equity out of any of them yet because they hadn't seasoned enough and they weren't matured. And I remember thinking, crap, I'm going to lose out on this 4th deal. It's a good deal. And that's when my father-in-law kind of came out of the woodworks and he's like, if I give you the money, can we split the profits? And I was like, yeah, like I wanted to play it cool. So I'm like, I'll think about that for a day, but I'm thinking I might be open to that. But inside I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And we did the deal. We made the money and we ended up buying a bunch of homes. And so my senior year in college, we had like 10 homes. But he was now running out of money and slowing down. And I was like, crap, I'm only halfway to my goal. And I need more father-in-laws. And that's when I realized that my father-in-law was like this very popular subset of America. Someone who had been to college, someone who had been 401k and IRAing, someone who had been fiscally responsible, was trying to pay off their house. That person has money for real estate. So I found 4 people like that, took them to lunch, showed them my portfolio. All 4 of them said, let's partner up. And that was like, geez, hundreds and hundreds of partners ago. Now I find partners all over social media. They usually put up their 401ks and IRAs and we split profits. And now they're getting in at the top of my game with the highest ROIs. And I get to still buy real estate without money. And now we're just doing as much as we can.
Tell me, Kris, about that first deal. Your goal was to get out of college, but not have to work a job. Why did you stay in college? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I don't mind you asking. So I was so hardcore brainwashed. Already had 3 older brothers and 2 of them had gone to college and 1 didn't. 1 got into car sales and was actually really successful at it. But I could see that my family had this really kind of, oh no, Don't be like your brother, Steve. He didn't get a college degree. And then on top of that, I married into a worse family. Like my wife's family, you're judged by academia. Like the more degrees you have, the more valid of a human being you are. So I was terrified, frankly, of my mother-in-law. Like she's a wonderful human being, but in that family, if you don't have a degree, you're not a valid human. And that sounds a little cruel to say. So I was like, okay, Kris, like be smart. You're building your business. You're buying all this real estate. My mother-in-law is literally saying, now you better graduate because you never know what's going to happen. I'm like, okay, going to do that. And so I decided to balance both, but it was chaotic because I was a full-time student with 18-hour credits usually. And I was working full-time at my job and I did real estate on the side. So, I mean, it was stressful, but ask me if I've used the degree since.
Yeah. I don't think you have.
No, I haven't, but I love teaching my own children the value of education and that you should love learning and growing because it's a lifelong thing. It's not a school thing. Yeah. It's not a college thing. It's a life thing.
Yeah. Kris, I understand you homeschool your kids. I do as well. Will you encourage your kids to go to college, you think?
It depends.
Yeah.
Homeschool, I'm going to define it a little bit differently just because I don't want there to be confusion out there.
Okay.
My kids are all privately educated. My wife and I find the teachers, we hire them, and we bring them into our home. Neither my wife nor I feel like we are subject matter experts enough to do a great job educating our own children. And I also disagree with half of what we think children need to know for the world. So my private educators teach our children differently, including me. I come in on Tuesday mornings and I teach my kids about money. And my kids, I mean, I've got a 13-year-old that can explain arbitrage to you. And I've got my 14-year-old daughter that can tell you all about real estate and owning businesses. And just yesterday, I was teaching him about cash flow quadrant and just saying, hey, in life, most people are either E's for employees or S's for self-employed, and self-employeds and employed will always trade time for money. But if you hop the fence to become a business owner and an investor, that game is all about money working for you, not you for it. And that's how you become wealthy. So my kids all have really great financial aspirations. And I teach them privately because I want to prepare them for the real world and not this weird messed up world. Like they don't need chemistry and calculus and half of this garbage.
Yeah. I think as parents, it is our responsibility to do some teaching. Like we shouldn't just hand them over to the state. But I was going to ask you, have you ever played like cash flow with your kids?
Yeah.
They'd be at a good age for that.
Last month, they played it 3 times.
Yeah. The intro to that for us was the farming game. Have you heard of that one?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of fun too. But yeah, the cash flow is a great way to teach all that stuff and getting stuck in the rat race and all that. So I love educating my kids with games like that too.
Yeah. The other way that I educate my children is I expect them to make their own money. So mom and dad don't buy them stuff. We give them a load of opportunities. My kids can make $500 to $1,000 a month. And then we expect them to buy their own clothes, buy their friends' birthday presents. They buy everything. And because when they earned it, they value it different. When mom and dad are like, oh, it's time to go clothes shopping. Do you want to wear this? A kid doesn't care about your money. They're like, sure. And then they don't wear it because they don't value it. They only value money that they earn. So in our household, we don't believe in allowance or socialism. What we do is we teach them to be their own humans. And so what that means is sometimes they're earning money by doing gigs, but sometimes they're earning money by reading books. Like my kids, I give them books to read and I say, if you read this book and give me a report, I'll pay you. And that way they have choice in what they want to pursue, but I'm financially incentivizing them to learn the kind of things that I believe they should.
Yeah. I started a book club with my kids when they were about 13, 14, and we meet once a month and discuss a book. And it's just a great way. We've actually included their friends on it now, but it's a great way to teach those things that I was never taught.
Yeah, I agree. That's my big thing for my kids is my kids know that I'm rich and they're not. They know that dad isn't going to leave them some crazy inheritance. So they're disincentivized from kind of figuring out their own destiny and path in life, but rather dad is as a coach and dad will advise and help. And that's only according to their own wishes and desires. They get to be their own humans.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is you're really teaching them to be intentional and not rely on you in their, 20 25 years old, 30 years old and wanting some money, they're not just going to come knock on the door and say, "Hey, Dad, ante up." Because you haven't done that.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
My
go ahead.
My 13-year-old, he keeps bees. All my kids have jobs, and
good.
And for him, he's learned, Dad, if I earn $600 and buy a beehive, it only takes me a couple hours a week to take care of it, but it produces $1,200 a year in honey. So what I can do is I can grow my beehives, and he says if I keep growing them, by the time I'm 18, I can make $50,000 a year working part-time and don't have to get a job if I don't feel like it. I can do something else with my life, something I enjoy. I'm like, that's right, son, you can do that.
Well, and bees is so cool because it's sales too, right? He's got to sell the honey.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's other.
He went down to the market 2 months ago and he offloaded all of his honey in 2 hours and had this big grin on his face.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. What's your biggest challenge right now, Kris, with real estate?
I don't think I have any challenges with real estate. I haven't really learned anything in the last decade. I mean, we're buying. No, I'm being honest. Like it's a machine and it's a system. And right now, the next decade is brilliant because we're missing 7.2 million single family homes. I go into the top 5 markets, set up shop there, and transact a lot of real estate. And I buy it in a way that we produce these ROIs of 25 to 35% year in and year out. And so it's a alternative to like a 401k that's very passive that can make you 27 times more money. Like just illustratively, the 401k at 6% versus real estate at 25% is 27 times more money in theory if it just compounds year over year. So it's such a smart place to be, and I'm trying to buy as much as I possibly can right now. I'm fortunate that social media has taken a semi-liking to me. I've got a lot of haters, but every day there's someone out there in the world that says, "Hey, Kris, I want to partner with you, and let's go buy real estate. I've got money in a 401k I'm unhappy with, or I've got equity in a home doing nothing for me." And so we'll build portfolios together, and I love doing that for people.
Yeah. Your primary market is where, or do you have them all over? Are you the Sun Belt?
No, we're 5 markets in particular. Orlando's one of our critical markets. Oklahoma, Memphis. I've got a market in Alabama. Those are the markets where I go where we have the best migration influx. You've got population growing. All 10 of your major macroeconomics from housing affordability and the economy in that local region and who's moving in. And I pick markets where multi-billion-dollar companies are moving in and creating 10,000 jobs. Places like that, allow us to take advantage of the supply-demand issue where you have monster demand, you have minimal supply, and that's going to drive the value over 5-7 years of real estate through the roof.
Sure. How hard was it for you, Kris, to get started and build your system? I mean, you've been at it for 20 years.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing, Marty. When I started getting into the real estate game, I was informed by a really great coach. He said, riches are in the niches, meaning you're going to make your money where nobody is. And so I was already doing well in single family, and I was having all this pressure to like trade up to multi.
Yeah.
And I was already struggling to want to go multi because I couldn't get the ROIs on multi consistently like I could on single family. And it's not as homogenous. And so I remember the moment when I said, you know what, who are my competitors in the single family scaling space? And I'm like, there's not really anybody here. And so I said, what if it's going to be hard, but what if I can figure it out? So we decided to figure it out, scale it, and basically become the biggest name in that single family space. And it's been good to us because not only do we outperform other asset classes really strongly, but we just don't have that. We just don't have competition.
Yeah. Kris, I feel like there's more competition in single family space now than there was 15 years ago. Don't you agree?
Well, single family is a very strong asset class right now. When you're missing nationwide 7.2 million homes and you have over $50 billion coming in from hedge funds, like BlackRock, et cetera, that want to start buying up all these single families, the government's trying to put a stop to it because, it's projected by 2030 that 10% of
Yeah.
all single family is going to be owned corporately. And that takes the opportunity away from Americans to actually make a really important financial plan in their life. If you look at the stats, 2024, the average American that owns real estate has $299,000 of equity. But at retirement, the average retirement fund is $254,000, which means that when people retire, they tried to save money their entire life, and yet they have more equity in a single home than they do in all their retirement. And I think it's always at that moment when it hits people, they're like, oh my gosh, if I just bought 3 or 4 more homes, I'd be a millionaire. If I bought, 10 homes, I'd be a multi-millionaire. And why didn't I do that? And too late, because you need time.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir here on this, but I was actually at a closing not too long, an hour and a half ago, and I was actually talking the closing agent into trying to get into it because of what you just said. Like, it's a big deal, and she can see it, but she's got her hesitations.
Yeah, and there's a lot of realtors and loan officers and mortgage brokers, and title companies that they swim in real estate all day long, so they've convinced themselves they're in the game. But until you own property, you're technically not. Real estate's just a job.
Yeah. Kris, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I know that you're an author, right? So I'm curious, what is your favorite book that you've written?
Probably 2 books. My most popular book is the first one that I wrote called The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. It's a great step-by-step guide on how you house hack yourself into millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Just on your own. But 2 years ago, I came out with a book called Have It All. And that book is about how you diversify ROIs to become a self-made millionaire. And it talks about earning money with single-digit ROIs, double-digit, triple-digit, and quadruple-digit, and then infinite ROIs. And that book, it's beyond the scope of real estate because real estate is a solid double-digit play. But I show people how to access triple and quadruple digits through owning businesses. So I think that book is adding something to the world that is not written about or talked about anywhere. Like it's not regurgitated knowledge. It's literally, if my job is to work at my job and save money, if some of it is in double digit and some is in triple and some is in quadruple, it's the ROI that will determine actually whether I get rich quick, which is a very unpopular term. But if you know how to access those kind of ROIs, you're going to get rich quick. So that book is really about the 5 asset classes that I believe in. And then I just came out last month. It's on the Barnes & Noble shelves right now with my latest book, Time Machine.
Okay.
And this book is a decision-making book on what to say yes to and what to say no to. Because every outcome of your life, every result you produce, good or bad, comes down to 2 words: yes and no. And so the book says most people are really handicapped in their decision-making process because they're upstairs being super logical. They're like, well, does it make financial sense? Is it logical? I'm like, those are useful tools, but they're limiting. And so I get into 3 other lenses that I believe a person should use when making decisions. And the book is designed to give a more balanced approach to having hindsight. When you make a decision down the road, will you look back and say, yes, I said the right yes, or I said the right no? And I think that book is also adding something to the world that hasn't been said before. Have
you read the book, The Gap in the Gain?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of maybe plays into that too. Your perspective once you've made that decision, how are we moving forward with it?
Yeah, 100%.
Outside of your books, Kris, what would be your book that you would say has been most influential in your life?
Jeez. I'm not going to
I know that's hard because there's a million of them.
I'm not going to answer. I think there's a better answer, which is I read 2 to 3 books a month.
Yeah.
And I think that if anyone will create the habit of reading every single day, like my morning routine, it gives me 40 minutes for book reading. And the truth is I do it in 20 minutes on Double Team because I can listen at 2.0. But I would just say, here's the stats. The average person graduating college will not read more than 2 books again for the rest of their life. And when I'm consuming, if you think about every year consuming 25 or 30 or 40 books, that has a huge impact on your perspective because you're basically taking usually someone's life work that they've whittled down into 4 or 5 or 6 hours of listening. And in 5 or 6 hours, I can consume a person's entire level of mastery. That is such a gift. I do not know why we aren't consuming books left and right. So rather than giving a specific book, what I would say is this: what is something that you want to master?
Sure.
Most people will only master a handful of things in life. I believe that there are 2 things that everyone should master. I think people should learn how to master their mindset. And I do believe that people should learn how to master money, because money touches everything and mindset touches everything. So I like those kind of books, because if I'm always consuming knowledge on those 2 things, I'm always going to get better and better at those things. And so I've read I feel like just about every single self-help book out there that is designed to help you shortcut and rewire your mind and figure out how to hack your own psychology for success. And then just pairing that with finance. I love reading financial books because that's a great way to continue the game of mastery.
Hey, here's one many people haven't read. Have you ever read The Wealthiest Barber?
I haven't, no.
It's in like an 1980s, maybe early 90s book. You might check it out. You would actually, I think, enjoy it. It's called The Wealthy Barber, but it's about 401ks and all that stuff, and real estate and what's the best use of your investing.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's not a very well-known one, but it's a good one.
Yeah. It sounds like a game plan book. Kind of reminds me just a little bit of The Wealthiest Man in Babylon, where it's
better than that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, probably more modern and up to date with how people live.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
My last question for you, Kris. I know we got to move on here in a sec, but you had one message to share with the world. What would your final message be? What is the one thing that you want the world to know from Kris Krohn?
I think everything comes down to loving yourself. Every problem that you're facing in life is not about the problem or the circumstance. It's about you. Can you love yourself in every texture? Can you love yourself when you perceive yourself as a good parent or as a lacking parent? Can you love yourself when you're going through something messy and difficult? Can you love yourself when a regulatory body is breathing down your neck? Can you love yourself when you're doing your do-over? Can you love yourself in bankruptcy? Can you love yourself? And I really feel like when we get to the end of life, what we're really going to value is not our stuff, because there's no U-Haul that goes to heaven, right? they keep finding, these ancient Egyptian pharaohs from thousands of years ago. And then when they crack open their tomb, all their crap is still here, all their gold and stuff. So none of it's going with you. So, I feel very fortunate that I've owned private jets and have lived in mansions and have been able to have the things, because I've gotten to the point where I've really learned they hold almost no value at all. What really matters at the end of the day is the people, the connections that we have, and the level of the depth of those connections, and our emotional intelligence in relation to how we perceive our world. And when I say love yourself, it's really an expression of how we treat each other, and it's an expression of how much of life are you actually enjoying versus getting stuck in that rat race.
Sounds like you got a new next book coming.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kris, for doing this with us and living your life and putting your social out there like you are to inspire people to do more with their life than the norm. You really are an inspiration in many ways to many people and different things. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Marty. It's been great to be here with everyone. And if anyone wants to, learn more, I have all sorts of a host of resources I love to give away to people for free. Very, very grateful to social media because it allows me to share so much. So I'm found on every social channel. I also have a website, freewealthgift.com, where people can go to basically just access my books for free, maybe a ticket to one of my upcoming events. And it's an opportunity that if you enjoy this, to lean in and let me give you more.
Yeah. When's your next event? What is it?
Next weekend, I have a wholesaling boot camp with Carlos Reyes. Later this year, I've got the Clever Investor Summit with Cody Sperber. I've got my own event center in Utah. So often people fly into Salt Lake and we'll do events here as well.
That's cool. Well, thank you so much, Kris.
You're welcome.
Hey, just wanted to thank you guys for listening to the end. In closing, I just wanted to add that if this message resonates with you, if it aligns with your values, and something in it today triggered something, then you can also look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We are really trying to help people live more intentional lives to kill the complacency with which they have subscribed to. I know there's many ways which I get sucked in all the time. So if this is beneficial, follow me there, spread the message, share. And if you want to wear a billboard of a message of kill complacency or live intentionally, then check out my merch store in show notes as well. But it's www.mindsetshop.com. Mindset is with an X, so it's MINDXET shop, SHOP.com, mindsetshop.com. Check it out. Thank you guys so much, and have a great one.
Thank you for listening to Kill Complacency. Follow and share our podcast to change lives and inspire growth.